Hello everybody. Google Cloud Platform, setting up network and HTTP load balancers. This is a tutorial based on a tutorial. As you can see, the contents are set up the default region and zone for all resources, create multiple web server instances, create a network load balancer, create a HTTP load balancer, and then we'll do a little test at the end. So let's go for Start Lab. And it's starting up a... just need to copy the password there. Password, which was the one they provide. So far so good. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a layer 3 load balancer and also a layer 7 load balancer. Once it's fully loaded, right, export ps1 equals, there we go. It's just something to help you be able to see it on that's large font. Okay, right, let's get going. So the first things first, I'll move this back in a second. So in this hands-on lab, you'll learn the differences between a network load balancer and an HTTP load balancer and how to set them up for your applications running on Google Cloud Engine virtual machines. There are several ways you can load balance in a Google Cloud Platform. This lab takes you through the setup of layer 4 network load balancer and layer 7 HTTP load balancer. Students are encouraged to type the commands themselves, which helps learning the core concepts. If you forgive me, I won't type it in because just for speed, and it would be boring watching me put in those typos. So we've already logged in and all that, so let's get to it, shall we? So first thing we want to do is list the active account name with gcloud auth list. Let's do that. Authorize, and there we see student at Quick Labs. So that's done. Next, you can list the project ID with this command. So that's gcloud config list project. Let's type that then, shall we? Gcloud config list project. And you can see your project is called Quick Labs GCP and then some random stuff. Okay. Right, let's get on with it. Oh, we just set the default region and zone for all resources. So let's just paste that in. Make that bigger. Let's go for a full screen effect, shall we? I don't know why that menu bar keeps trying to jump out at me, but right. Setting the zone, and we also need to set the region. So the region is there. And we'll paste that in. gcloud config set compute region US central 1. There you go. Right. So that's all the setup stuff. Create multiple web server instances to simulate serving from a cluster of machines. Create a simple cluster of Nginx web servers to serve static content using instance templates and managed instance groups. Instance templates define the look of every machine in the cluster. Disk, CPUs, memory, etc. Managed instant groups instantiate a number of virtual machine instances to using the instance template. To create the Nginx web server clusters, create the following. So a startup script to be used by every virtual machine instance to set up Nginx server upon startup. An instance template an instance template to use the startup scripts. Want a target pool and a managed instance group using the instance template. If that sounds complicated, let's just go through that again. So we're going to make a startup script, which is going to be used by every instance. We're going to have an instance template, which basically specifies the startup script, which then starts up the servers or the server instance. Target pool, managed instance. Right, I think the easier way is actually do it. So bin bash apt-get update, install Nginx, start Nginx, and then just modify the HTML page that we will ultimately be viewing when we're testing. So just going to copy that, go back across here, and let's paste that in. As you can see, it's bash script. It's going to update, install Nginx, start the server, and then change the page. Change the host name on the page that we view. Create a target pool. A target pool allows a single access point to all the instances in a group and is necessary for load balancing. So if you want to do load balancing, you have to create a target pool. So let's do that. gcloud compute target pools. So it's and then the verb. The verb is always, so it's always the resource, and then the verb, and then the name. So if you study Google Cloud, you'll know that it's always the verb which comes last. It's quite good format. We've created the pool, so we need the pool for the load balancing. Now we create the managed instance group using the instance template. So gcloud compute instance groups managed, and then create Nginx group. Base instance name is Nginx, size 2. The template is template Nginx-template, which it gets from there, which we ran when we created the template, create an instance template up there. So let's run that. Okay. The template was not found. If I missed a command, did I not run it? I was too busy talking. Let's concentrate. Right. Right, create the pool again. Okay, pool already exists, that's fine. Now create the group. Right, okay, there we go. Nginx group, base instance name, template. So you've got those three things: the group name, the instance name, and then the instance template. Okay, next. This is the compute engine instances, and you should see all of the instances created. So let's do that. gcloud, let's type that. So gcloud compute instances, and then the verb at the end, list. So we've got the group, and then we've got, oh yeah, the instances list. There we go. So there's name, OVFH, and there's another one which is LMSM. And they've each got a different external IP and internal IP. The internal IPs are actually on the same subnet, which is what you need because we're going to be trying to load balance them. Next. Now configure a firewall, so firewall rule, so that you can connect to the machines on port 80 via the external IP address. So we're going to allow all traffic, all TCP traffic in on port 80, and we'll attach that to firewall. Good. That's the firewall name. We just called it www-firewall. Oh, check my progress. There we go. So that's the setup. We've created 2 web servers with different IP addresses, and now we want to just get to the nitty-gritty of it. So network load balancing allows you to balance the load of your systems based on incoming IP protocol data, such as IP address or port or protocol type. You also get some options that are not available with HTTPS load balancing. For example, you can load balance additional TCP/UDP based protocols such as SMTP traffic. And if your application is interested in TCP connection related characteristics, network load balancing allows your app to inspect the packets where HTTPS, so the layer 7 load balancing, does not. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a layer 4 network load balancer targeting our instance group. Okay, so let's go for that. gcloud compute forwarding rules. Create nginx-lb. We have to specify the region, the port, and the target pool. Remember, we just created the pool. There we go, that's done. So let's carry on. List all Google Compute Engine forwarding rules in your project. Back to type that probably just for repetition and muscle memory. gcloud compute forwarding rules list. Now you can see there's a forwarding rule, and that anything that hits this external IP address will get forwarded through to the Nginx pool. Right. You can then visit the load balancer from the browser, HTTP at that address, and then we can check to see if it's forwarding to. Right, so what we're going to do is let's get that IP address. Copy. Got a new incognito window. HTTP. And we should get the Nginx dummy page. Yes, we have. Nginx 1MSM. Good. Right. Check my progress. Assessment completed. We're rolling here. So next, we're going to create the HTTPS load balancer as opposed to the network load balancer. So instead of layer 4, this will be layer 7. HTTPS load balancing provides global load balancing for HTTPS request destined for your instances. You can so global means from the outside world. Layer 4 could be internal. You can configure URL rules that route some URLs to one set of instances and route to other URLs for other instances. I kind of think of that the other way around. A certain URL goes to a certain backend instance and another URL goes to another backend instance. Maybe that's what they were meant. Anyway, requests are always routed to the instance group that is closest to the user. So that we're talking geographically and globally here. Provided that the group has enough capacity and is appropriate for the request. If the closest group does not have enough capacity, the request is sent to the closest group that does have capacity. Okay. So if you've got a group in Central Europe and that's busy, it'll send it to Western Europe or something like that. Documentation there. Don't take my word for it. gclouds. So next we want to create a health check. With load balancers, always have health checks because they need to know if the pool they're sending the traffic to is actually up, running, alive, so to speak. So let's put that in, shall we? Let's go for that. So gcloud compute HTTP health checks. A tab auto completes that for you. So then you do create and then you give it a name. So HTTP basic. Autocomplete won't work on that because its actual name is not a command. There we go. So it's created the health check. Created. Name, host, request path, so on. Next, define an HTTP service and map a port name to the relevant port for the instance group. Define an HTTP, get my words muddled here. Define an HTTP service and map a port name to the relevant port for the instance group. So we're going to do gcloud compute, and I'm going to do instance groups, and then we'll say managed, set named ports to Nginx group, and named ports HTTP port 80. Let's copy and paste that. Updated. So define an HTTP service and map a port name to the relevant port. So Nginx-group will point to HTTP port 80. Next, create a backend service. gcloud compute backend services. Create Nginx-backend, and that's basically going to tie the health checks and the protocol and tell it that it's global and so on. So it's just copy and paste that in. You could do all this really GUI, obviously. I think the benefit, I won't go on about the benefits of doing it command line, but obviously the benefits of doing it command line with this tutorial is that you can copy and paste. Trying to do it with GUI from a tutorial would be long-winded. So next, let's we've just listed our backend name. So we've just created it. Let's just list it then, shall we? Sorry. In fact, we don't need to list it because we've seen it's created. Right, add the instance group into the backend service. So we know the instance group is called nginx-group. And sorry, move that out of the way, get that again. So gcloud compute, backend services, add backend, nginx backend, instance group, nginx group. So we're just joining them all together, joining the dots, so to speak. Good. Right, now we create a default URL map that directs all incoming requests to all your instances. gcloud compute URL maps, create web map, and it's linking default service. It's saying the default service is the nginx backend, and the backend is what we created just now, which ties together the region and the nginx group. Let's go for that. I mean, once you script this, it's going to be a lot easier than doing it. This is very much the the tutorial way. In production, you would have a script of this. So really what this is doing is just teaching you each individual command and showing you how it works step by step. Create a default URL map. We've done that. Good. Create a target HTTP proxy to route requests to your URL map. So what we need to do here is say send create target HTTP proxy to route requests to your URL map. Okay, and then our URL map sends it to the backend services. Okay. Right, we've got our URL map. Now we create a global forwarding rule to handle and route incoming requests. Forwarding rule sends traffic to a specific target HTTP or HTTPS proxy. So all this lives out in the cloud, and then, or out in the, it's not tied to your region, it's global. And depending on the port protocol specified, the global forwarding rule does not support multiple ports. Okay. So create the HTTP content rule. So anything global goes to the load balancer on the next port 80. Sorry, I'm pasting rubbish in here. Let's just go back. We've got 16 minutes left. Just checking how much there's left to do. So where do we get to? We got to here. So gcloud compute forwarding rules. And the forwarding rules, we're going to create the HTTP content rule, and it's global, and then the target is the load balancing proxy, which we've just created. So let's paste that in here. I think if you do these tutorials, you can kind of get overloaded by a lot of the syntax, and then you just panic and you think, oh, I'm never going to remember all this. But really you don't need to, because let's just list the forwarding rules. There should be 2. This really is to show it breaking down every individual step, and typically once you've scripted this, or you can automate this. So we've got the HTTP content rule. That's the layer 7 HTTP proxy rule, and that's the load balancing one that we ran first off, which was the layer 4. So we've got a different external IP address there, which I'm sure we're about to test. Yeah, so let's get that one and just check that works. So it ends in 248. And we've got an error. Oh, that's not good. Oh, okay. It may take 3 to 5 minutes. If you do not connect, wait a minute and then reload the browser. Okay, not panicking just yet. It's obviously updating it in the big wide world, so just check we take a note. Take a note of the HTTP content rule IP address. Just check we're doing the right one. Yeah, so the rules there. There we go, at last. So what we've got here is the layer 7 load balancer, which is sending it, again, it's sending it to the 1MSM. We've only got 2 instances, so good. Right, let's just check my progress, get a little green tick, and we'll assess what we've learned. Test your knowledge about Google Cloud Platform by taking our quiz. Network load balancing is a regional, non-proxied load balancer. So network, that's meaning the layer 4 one as opposed to the HTTP proxy one. So true. Yeah. And because I already done this when I was rehearsing the video, it's obviously already submitted it. So what we've done here is just to summarize, we've set the default region. So gcloud config set compute zone compute region. We've created multiple web server instances. So we did that by creating one with the startup script, and then we created an instance template which was using the startup script, and then we created an instance template and we told it that there were going to be 2 of them. And then we did gcloud compute instances list. Once we'd actually created the group, we had 2 instances running, and then we added a firewall rule, and then we created a network load balancer which ran at layer 4, which basically pointed to one of our 2 web servers. And then we created the HTTPS load balancer. We created a health check, gcloud compute HTTP health checks. We created an instance group called managed. We set the ports, and we just set the named ports. HTTP is port 80. Created backend service called Nginx backend. And then we added the instance group into the backend service. So this is what was different for the HTTP load balancer. We had to add the backend service. Then we create a URL map. Create a default URL map that directs all incoming requests to all your instances. And then we created a target HTTP proxy to route the requests to the URL map. And then we created the forwarding rule that handles handle and route all incoming requests. So you need the global forwarding rule. The forwarding rule sends traffic to the specified HTTPS or HTTPS proxy. So the HTTP or HTTPS proxy is out in, is just out there somewhere. So we create a forwarding rule. So whenever anything comes in, it then redirects it to the proxy, and then the proxy sends it to whichever 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 region, protocol, and whatever target you've already set up. So gcloud compute forwarding rules list. So global forwarding rule. That's the HTTP. So layer 7, the HTTPS load balancer is global. Kind of the network one is within within your VPC typically. So there we go. If you're familiar with other types of load balancer, then you might think this is a bit clunky, and to be honest, I suspect there will be demo videos out there. Even Google once showing you how to do all this really GUI, and it may even be easy. Well, I'm sure it's easier, and you certainly won't remember all these commands, but obviously these commands are scriptable, and that's always the benefit. And what we've looked at is the network load balancer, which I think was fairly straightforward. The HTTP one was more complicated because it's obviously redirecting via a proxy, so then you have to create the forwarding rules, so to speak. So and then remember the health checks as well. You need to check whether the back-end instances are actually up or down. And again, in a GUI, you'd probably be able to go in and have a dashboard and see whether they were red or green and so on. So yeah, if you're interested, this course was, this is not a paid promotion, certainly not, but you can sign up to Google Coursera. This is Quick Labs, and you can then run this if you have some credit, or even if you don't, which I won't go into here, but yeah, there's ways and means, should we say. So hopefully this has been interesting, and yeah, if you're looking at learning about Google Cloud or any cloud, then load balancers are quite an important thing to know about and to understand and be able to set up and troubleshoot. And if you're running any sort, whether you're doing something with Python, Flask, Django, and you're setting up some kind of web application, then you will most likely come across this. So although this hasn't been Python code exactly or at all, hopefully you've still found it interesting, and I'm going to keep going with these videos unless anybody says they're useless and annoying. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back next time with some more interesting stuff. So don't forget to subscribe because it helps the channel and keeps me happy. So thanks for watching. Bye.